If you've been in the lost media community for at least 2.8 seconds, you definitely have stumbled upon a piece of lost media revolving around the children's cable channel Nickelodeon, or 2, or 3, or a baker's dozen for all I know. The point is that Nickelodeon lost media is everywhere you look, for better or for worse. From the well-known searches of Me and My Friends and Clockman, to lesser-known topics such as pocket money and being the sound of something new, our knowledge of Nickelodeon and children's lost media in general continues to expand each and every day. And I know for some of you this may be your first video of mine you watch, or heck, you were just falling down the lost media rabbit hole here on YouTube like I did 5 or so years ago, so you may not necessarily be that familiar with the fun quirks within the lost media community. But I really cannot exaggerate enough how much the idea of media becoming lost and Nickelodeon are connected to one another on the internet. It fascinates and fuels half-forgotten nostalgia for so many people each and every day, myself included obviously. So that's why I'm kickstarting a new series here on the channel titled Nicksteries, a show where we cover the wide world of Nickelodeon lost media one piece at a time. From iconic searches to the odd obscurities and everything in between, Nicksteries aims to be a love letter to the media from the first network for kids lost to the ages. Hopefully we can all learn something new, kickstart some searches for long-thought lost media, and hopefully we won't have to cover Me and My Friends for like the bazillionth time. It's fitting for the first episode that we figure out where this correlation between Nickelodeon and lost media started, which is a lot more of a relative question to answer than you might think. You could argue that it started with the broad searches such as Crybaby Lane, Clockman, and A Day with SpongeBob SquarePants, 3 Nickelodeon-themed searches that would shape the landscape of how we search for media here on the internet. While the impact these searches have had and their connection to Nickelodeon is undeniable, it's a legacy not necessarily exclusive to the channel. You can say the same for Cracks, Mickey Mouse in Vietnam, and even Rhapsody Street Kids, 3 well-known and iconic lost media searches that aren't related in any shape or form to Nickelodeon. Even if you haven't been fully invested in the lost media community, there's a good chance that you've heard of at least one of these searches in passing or brought up in your typical online discourse. There had to have been a Nickelodeon search that really cemented that unbreakable connection between Nickelodeon's odd obscurities and our modern lost media sensibilities. You know, like the perfect combo of peanut butter and chocolate that makes Reese's Puffs.
Peanut butter chocolate, great when separate, but when they combine, they make the morning time epic. Morning time epic. Morning time epic.
At least from my experience, it didn't start with costumed backyardigans characters or even a small press kit mention. It started with 4 little words that would kickstart one of the biggest Nickelodeon lost media mysteries of all time.
Hi, I'm Johnny Quasar, and this is my robot dog, Goddard. Bark, 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 bark.
This is the lost media legend of the adventures of Johnny Quasar. Judging by the fact that you clicked on this video, I'm guessing you have at least a surface level knowledge on what Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius is. It is one of the most iconic Nickelodeon franchises of all time, kicking off its run with a banger movie in 2001 and being picked up as a full series for 3 seasons between 2002 and 2006. It's a show that's extremely nostalgic for 2000s kids who, for all I know, probably watched the show cozy in their Jimmy Neutron bedsheets and on their SpongeBob TV. And memes. Oh, there were memes.
Hey dude, you missed a spot.
I got it. Just a little sodium chloride.
Actually, dude, it's salt.
That's what I said, sodium chloride.
Dude, that would be salt.
The show revolves around 11-year-old James Isaac Neutron, or Jimmy Neutron, a super intelligent kid with an IQ of 210 going about his super wacky adventures with his friends and family in his hometown of Retroville, Texas. He has a knack for inventing things, owns a robot dog named Goddard, and has some absolutely wicked hair. Seriously, I want to know the brand of hair gel this kid uses. Of course, with the franchise being so successful and establishing itself in pop culture to this day, it's no surprise that Jimmy Neutron had quite humble beginnings. Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius was created by John A. Davis under his company DNA Productions, who you might know as that one company with a weird monkey named Paul. Davis came up with the original concept for the show all the way back in the 1980s and wrote a conceptual script titled Runaway Rocket Boy, starring everyone's favorite super intelligent brain-blasting boy named Johnny Quasar. According to Davis, this was actually a nickname he was given in his youth, turning the name into a science-loving boy who defies his parents by building a rocket ship and flying far, far away. The conceptual script was actually forgotten about until the early 1990s, as while Davis was moving houses, he stumbled upon the original concept again and decided to continue work on it. He would then team up with the eventual co-creator of Jimmy Neutron, Keith Alcorn, and under his company DNA Productions, would create a 40-second long short in 1995 titled The Adventures of Johnny Quasar.
Hi, I'm Johnny Quasar, and this is my robot dog, Goddard. Bark, 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 bark. I made him myself. You see, I'm a genius, but sometimes I'm too smart for my own good. Danger, danger. Whoa, got a blast!
This little short shows everything Davis had imagined for the concept up to that point. The rocket ship, his robot dog Goddard, and of course the runaway rocket boy himself, Johnny Quasar. Johnny's character design, along with other designs, was created by Paul Claerhaut, who would eventually go on to do some design work on the final show. Considering that Johnny Quasar is basically a different character, it's definitely fair to say that his original conceptual design varies quite a bit from the brain-blasting boy we've all come to know and love. Instead of the massive gravity-defying hair of Jimmy Neutron, he instead has an insanely bulbous forehead and nicely combed hair that kinda sorta makes him look like Jack's films. Yeah, I said it. He also sports a white lab coat instead of the classic red shirt with the Neutron printed on it. Other than the titular character, the concept wasn't actually all that different from what would eventually end up on TV screens everywhere. The robot dog, Goddard, is still here, and so is the good old rocket ship, which apparently is so advanced that you don't need a spacesuit to drive it. But what do I know? After all, according to Johnny himself,
I'm a genius.
way to toot your own horn, little fella. Davis would eventually go on to screen the 40-second Johnny Quasar short at the 1995 SIGGRAPH conference, an annual event covering the wonders of computer graphics. And it went over quite well at the event, winning 2 awards for Best in Character Animation and Best in Show. The character animation was specifically praised, with the entirety of the short being animated in the computer animation software Lightwave 3D. And I gotta say, this is some pretty decent CGI for 1995 standards. Character animation is certainly fluid, and while the models are quite simple, that's definitely to be expected. We're talking 1995 here, the same year in which the first fully CGI animated feature film, Toy Story, would be released. I don't know, there's just something about old CGI that creeps me out. It's probably the eyes. A majority of the time they're just glorified spears bulging out of the characters' heads. Johnny Quasar himself is certainly no exception in that front. It's fair to say that the concept for Johnny Quasar was garnering many eyes already. John A. Davis's little idea that he had brainstormed a decade prior was already looking like it was on a path to become a successful franchise, and the short's presentation at SIGGRAPH cemented that. While at the event, Davis would meet Steve Odekirk, who shopped the idea to Davis of pitching Johnny Quasar as a fully fledged TV series. So in the fall of '95, Davis and Odekirk would eventually meet with some higher-ups at Nickelodeon, or more specifically Albie Hecht, the then president of the network. Here's what he had to say about Johnny. They had some kooky ideas about this crazy kid who was half Bart Simpson and half Einstein, and we just fell in love with him. He was so much of a perfect Nick kid who has a sense of adventure and invention, but is still grounded in the everyday world that he struck an emotional chord for us. Visually, we thought it was a great style, what John calls a future retro style, evocative of the contemporary Return to Tomorrow trend. And it was a CGI character, so we really felt we could do a lot with it across our division. Nickelodeon seemed to really like the concept for Johnny Quasar, being a unique concept that the network was attracted to. They weren't just interested in making it a simple TV series anymore, they wanted to make Johnny Quasar into a full franchise. A theatrical film, an animated series, you know, the whole 9 yards. To me, that's like the holy grail, to do a feature. And just like that, Nick greenlighted the project and ordered a 13-minute pitch pilot to be created for the TV series. Now, here's where the timeline of events gets a bit misconstrued. I'll try to keep things as simple as I can, but there isn't necessarily any huge documentation of specific dates and years from this point onward, so keep that in mind if things may seem a bit messy at points. So now that Davis and Odekirk had the green light from Nick to create a pitch pilot, they can continue to develop Johnny's World. In 1997, they would develop another 38-second demo with slightly more fleshed out and redesigned characters.
I tell you, he'll be back any minute now. I mean, how far can the little guy go?
They're getting closer. Hold on.
I'm not necessarily sure why this second demo was created, because at this point they would have already started full development on the pilot, which we'll get to in a bit. My guess is that it was a sort of update on the project, to give Nick a revised version of Johnny's World. Johnny would in fact feature a slight redesign, now sporting a spiked hairdo that is closer to what Jimmy Neutron would eventually have, but obviously not as intense. I also find it funny how the short ends with, "The audience is waiting," like this is THX or something. Other than that, it's just more rocket ship shenanigans with our boy Johnny. It was also around this time that several test renders would be created featuring more of Johnny's World, like this one featuring the early designs of his parents. While these renders may seem unimportant, it was actually revealed that these were early renders for the pilot, when they were still using Johnny as the main character. This is important because, as you'll see in a minute, Johnny Quasar would not stick around for the pilot and instead end up on the cutting room floor. Poor Johnny. Oh yeah, and I didn't know where to put this in, but I would be doing a disservice to you if I didn't bring up this absolutely ridiculous looking Johnny Quasar prototype model that was made sometime during development. Like seriously, what even is that expression? I swear, whenever I get around to making a Discord server, this is gonna be one of the emojis. So here we have Davis, Odekirk, and the entire DNA team now working with the biggest children's network in the world on not just a TV series, but now an entire feature film. Things were finally starting to heat up on the production side of things. These weren't just simple concepts anymore. Full pilot episodes and movies were being created. But Nickelodeon wanted a few major changes before things got too finalized, and it had to do with the titular character Johnny Quasar. The network thought that too many people would confuse the name Johnny Quasar with other popular characters of the time, such as Hanna-Barbera's science fiction franchise Johnny Quest, or the video game Captain Quasar, which would release around the same time. This seemed to be an alarm to Davis, who quickly brainstormed another name, eventually coming up with the iconic Jimmy Neutron, boy genius. And hey, why don't we change up the character design a little bit more too? Goodbye to the short, spiked hair of Johnny, and hello to the gravity-defying dude we've all come to know and love. Let's change up some facial features as well, and bam, you got yourself the finalized design of Jimmy Neutron. Well, kinda, we'll get back to that. And just like that, Johnny Quasar would be left on the cutting room floor only for his story to fall into endless obscurity. I don't know the exact time frame, but the Johnny Quasar name and original character design was certainly out by early 1998. Despite the shakeup in character direction, work would continue on the pilot throughout '98, now with Jimmy Neutron as the main dude. The pilot would be finished later that year, going back to its conceptual title of Runaway Rocket Boy, and Nickelodeon seemed quite impressed with how things were turning out. Davis boasted the idea that assets such as models and background elements could be reused between the film and the show, creating theatrical quality animation on the small screen. Even at this stage in development, some character designs weren't exactly finalized. You may notice that Jimmy is sporting a red striped shirt instead of the red shirt with a neutron, taking more of a page out of Steve from Blue's Clues in that sense. Also, Carl Weezer looks different, to say the least.
Okay, but You promised to help me with math class.
Things were finally coming together after years and years of development, and in the eyes of Nick, it wouldn't be long before audiences would feast their eyes on Jimmy's adventures. In the fall of 1999, production on the feature film now under its final title Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius would officially be greenlit and would officially begin in February of 2000. With Davis at the helm, the film was completed in just 24 months. Hype would start to build on the Nickelodeon channel for Jimmy Neutron, and oh, Nickelodeon did not want you to forget Jimmy Neutron existed. Jimmy would come onto the Nickelodeon network itself and somehow interfere with the broadcast in various ways. Oh look, Jimmy turned the SpongeBob characters into puppets, or oh look, Jimmy is making Helga eat pork a few times over again. I'm not even joking when I say that there is a massive search effort to document and preserve these things. Like seriously, this is one of the only LMW pages I've seen with a dedicated update section to it. But anyways, keeping on topic, audiences would finally be introduced to Jimmy Neutron in theaters on December 21st, 2001, with the TV series premiering not long after on July 20th, 2002 to critical and commercial success. And I think we all know what happens next. With the ever-expanding growth of the lost media community over the past decade, it's no wonder that people would start digging around in their favorite childhood franchises to see if there's any interesting lost media attached to them. Jimmy Neutron was obviously no exception to this. While we've already mentioned the Jimmy Neutron Nickelodeon interruptions in passing, there was one piece of obscure Jimmy lore that everyone had their eyes on. This, of course, was the fellow runaway rocket boy himself, Johnny Quasar. Up to that point, only an 11-second clip out of the full 45 seconds of the first Johnny Quasar demo had surfaced online.
Hi, I'm Johnny Quasar, and this is my robot dog, Goddard. Bark, 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 bark.
This clip had come from an old archive of the DNA Productions website, and as you can tell, it's in crispy 90s internet quality. A higher quality clip of the first 3 seconds could also be found on a Lightwave 3D reel from the time as well. By the way, if you want to see some tubular 90s CGI, this Lightwave reel has you covered. I mean, just look at this. There was also the mystery and intrigue surrounding the various images on the old DNA Productions website. Were these images a part of the original demo animation? Were they tests for another piece of Johnny Quasar media entirely? It's important to note that at this time, the general public didn't even know the second 1997 demo existed or the early tests for the Runaway Rocket Boy pilots. It was up to our own speculation to decide what the exact source of these screen caps were. And that's all we really had from the original Johnny Quasar animation. We realized quickly that there could be quite a bit of potential in those 33 seconds of animation for a good hearty lost media search of epic proportions, and thus an official effort to find the demo was launched. Initially, 3 theories were formed about the whereabouts of the demo, with each having their own merit to their own case. The rule of 3 sure does apply to a bunch of these lost media theories, huh? So put your tinfoil hat back on, pull out your abnormally large bulletin board, and get cozy in your gaming chair, because it's time to look at the 3 theories on the whereabouts of the Johnny Quasar demo. The first theory was that the demo was on a special CD-ROM only given out at the SIGGRAPH 1995 event. This CD would have contained various assets that related to the event in some way, with it being theorized that the Johnny Quasar demo could possibly be contained on the disc. There were just 2 teeny tiny problems with this theory. Number 1 is that this disc is exceptionally rare, only being given out at the 1995 SIGGRAPH event, so getting our grubby little hands on the disc would be a challenge in itself. And even if we were able to get our hands on the disc, the second problem was that it wasn't even confirmed that any Johnny Quasar content was on the disc at all. In fact, in a reply to a Reddit post mentioning the whereabouts of Johnny Quasar by user Silicon Classics, it is outright deconfirmed. I also have a CD from SIGGRAPH 95, but it's the computer graphics preceding disc and probably doesn't contain clips from the animation festival. So yeah, that basically puts the SIGGRAPH disc out of the picture for finding Johnny Quasar. The second theory is that Johnny Quasar is in the possession of the original creators of the demo, that being John Davis, Keith Alcorn, or Steve Odekirk. This meant that we basically could try to contact either one of them to try and inquire about a possible copy. This will become more important in a bit, but at this point it would seem like the most likely option. After all, you might as well go directly to the source, because why wouldn't they still have the demo? Hehe, foreshadowing, wink. The third and final theory is that the Johnny Quasar demo came into the possession of Nickelodeon after the show was picked up. It certainly makes sense that Nick would have the demo, but many people know from personal experience that getting in contact with Nick to inquire about lost media is no easy feat. You can't just knock at Albie Heck's door and demand a fresh copy of Johnny Quasar for preservation purposes, if you know what I mean. Unless someone could pull a miracle, this left this theory mostly off the table as well. Just like that, this only left the idea of the creators having the demo feasible in the slightest. But who would be brave enough to go in and get that demo once and for all? Who would be the individual to save the Johnny Quasar search before it was too late? It only seemed like a matter of time until a lost media Goliath would get Jimmy Neutron's predecessor found for all of us. The question is, who would it be?
Yes, are you going to finish that croissant?
Knock yourself out. Let me assure you.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Johnny Quasar's search effort was certainly raging on in the background, but this search effort was mainly confined to forum boards and scattered Reddit posts. It certainly wasn't going unnoticed by the general lost media community, but it would take someone with tons of influence within it to really get the word out there. And that someone was a little lost media YouTuber that you may or may not know named L Supersonic Q. On May 11th, 2017, popular lost media dude L Supersonic Q would upload a video titled The Mystery of Johnny Quasar, a short dive into the story of Jimmy Neutron's prototype lost to the ages. But this video didn't just function as a simple story, it was a research haven to kickstart the Johnny Quasar search once and for all. LSSQ would get in touch with the co-creator of Jimmy Neutron, Keith Alcorn, who in turn was able to reach out to the man himself, John A. Davis, about the whereabouts of the demo. The response given was that the demo was believed to be in a larger file storage area and he'll look into it when he gets the chance. This was certainly an amazing lead to be followed up on. I mean, you aren't getting any more truthful confirmation than from the big eyes upstairs. Now we just needed to be patient and hopefully wait for the answer we were all looking for. But sometimes the lost media gods ain't kind to us searchers. Keith would eventually get back to LSSQ with some bad news. He did in fact look into his master file storage area, but unfortunately came up empty-handed. An unfortunate fact to hear from one of the big people behind Johnny's development. Despite the unfortunate news, the lost media community wasn't ready to give up just yet on Johnny Quasar. After all, resilience is key to any conducted search. Lost Media Wiki user Cheat Freak would eventually find and reach out to Paul Clearhout, who if you remember from earlier was the person who did most of the design work for the demo. Clearhout did in fact get back to Cheat Freak and gave us a ton of then unknown info on Johnny's development. First, remember how I said we could never determine the exact source of those images on the DNA website? Well, this email exchange finally confirmed that these were just simple model tests for the runaway Rocket Boy pilot, and not a part of the demo like we had assumed. More specifically, this image that shows Johnny's family. We still weren't exactly sure what the source of the other screenshots were, since a second demo existing was still up in the air. But hey, you can't really complain about this clarification. Another little piece of Johnny Quasar lore Clearhout would give us was that the initial character designs for Johnny and Friends shown in some of the very first concept art was based on Puppetoons, a series of animated short films created by filmmaker George Pal in the 1940s. The resemblance is certainly there, with the bouncy cartoony style of the shorts bleeding into the early designs of the characters. But what about the million-dollar question? The question to end all questions. Does Clearhout have a copy of the Johnny Quasar demo? Drumroll please. No. Unfortunately, it was confirmed in the exchange that Clearhout doesn't have the Johnny Quasar demo in his possession. It was said that he may have a box of tapes that the demo might be contained in, but nothing else really came from this lead. and so left the Johnny Quasar search in a strange position. While leads were certainly out there, it seemed that the lack of copies even among the main people behind the helm would hinder the search effort. Maybe we just had to accept the fact that the full Johnny Quasar demo might be lost to the ages, never to be seen again. It was certainly a possibility not out of the question, and one we searchers were afraid to admit. A wise man once told me that you should never count out the world of lost media nor its community for bringing miracles, because sometimes all it takes is a little word of mouth. August 14th, 2017 would seem like your average ordinary day in the lost media community, but then a miracle happened. Both of the Johnny Quasar demos were randomly uploaded to YouTube by the voice actor for Johnny, Hillel Horani. This included the original 1995 demo, as well as the more obscure 1997 demo we never really confirmed to exist until now, and people were hyped. El Supersonic Q would later make a follow-up video to celebrate the success of the Johnny Quasar search, a great send-off to a lost media search of bombastic proportions. It really shows how lost media can take either years of dedicated searching to get a result, or simple outreach can make something readily available again with the snap of some fingers. If it wasn't for the fact that the Johnny Quasar demos were not available in full, Hillel would have never uploaded them to YouTube in the first place. I was lucky to get to be the voice of Johnny Quasar for this demo of early Jimmy Neutron. I couldn't find the full version on YouTube, so I thought I would put it up. And that's the beauty of lost media in action. This year marks the 5th anniversary of the Johnny Quasar demos being found. A lot has happened in the world of lost media since then, but the concepts established in the epic quest for Johnny Quasar are still very commonplace today. The demo's obscurity and eventual rediscovery certainly shook up the internet world surrounding it, and it opened the vast door for the big Nickelodeon searches of today. 4 days before Johnny Quasar officially became found media, LSSQ would publish his iconic video on Me and My Friends, the search that would go on to dominate the Nickelodeon lost media circle. Johnny Quasar and Me and My Friends may seem like vastly different products, but they share common ground in the fact that they are pitches for early 2000s CGI Nickelodeon shows produced in the 90s that would eventually become something completely different. Both also have had a massive search effort put into them, fueled by the nostalgic memories of those who saw these shows back in their heyday. And yet you see one get brought up a lot more nowadays, and the other is more or less forgotten in our modern lost media landscape. I mean, other iconic Nickelodeon search efforts of the day, such as A Day with SpongeBob, SquarePants, and Clockman, are still fondly remembered to this day, as said earlier. Even with just a surface level knowledge of lost media, there's a good chance you've heard of at least one of these. Clockman was found just a few short months after Johnny Quasar, so why is one search a defining moment for the lost media community and the other is a forgotten blur to the minds of newcomers? As for Johnny Quasar, maybe you just had to be there to see it for yourself. In my mind, Nickelodeon lost media never would have been as big as it is today without Johnny. While certain search efforts have certainly propelled Nick lost media into a realm of its own, the spectacle and eventual impact of Johnny Quasar will be a hard thing to top. Welcome to the first episode of Nicksteries, everyone. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for one brain-blasting boy whose mystery defined lost media forever. Got a blast! This has been Bray Bray, thanks for watching, and remember that Buff Yoshi is forever supreme.